Have you ever wondered what happens when you truly act like she doesn't exist? Not pretending, not half-hearted silence, but complete energetic indifference, as if her name has been erased from your mind, her memory deleted from your heart. You see, most men think ignoring her will make her chase, but that's not how this works. If your silence is driven by hope, she can feel it. If your distance hides resentment, she still senses it, because true power isn't in ignoring her, it's in forgetting her. When a Stoic man withdraws, he doesn't do it to punish her. He does it to purify himself, to strip away every emotional chain that once tied him to someone who no longer deserves his energy. The result isn't silence, it's absence, the kind of absence that can't be faked, because it radiates calm, and that calm terrifies her. Marcus Aurelius said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." That's the secret. The moment you stop giving her power to affect your emotions, she starts losing her ability to control them. The entire dynamic reverses. She thought she could feed her ego off your reactions, your texts, your curiosity, your pain. But when you remove your presence completely, when you act like she doesn't exist, the mirror she used to admire herself in disappears. She doesn't crave your attention. She craves the reflection of herself that existed through your attention. And when that reflection vanishes, her ego begins to crumble. So before we go further, if you're ready to reclaim your focus, your peace, and your power, comment below, "I am unseen," because from this moment forward, your silence isn't revenge, it's revelation. If you live by discipline, restraint, and self-mastery, like this video and subscribe. Now let's begin. Every ego needs a mirror, and for a long time, you were hers. You reflected her beauty through your compliments, her importance through your attention, and her power through your reactions. Every time she pulled away and you reached out, her ego grew stronger. Every time she provoked emotion and you responded, she felt validated. You were feeding the reflection that kept her inflated. But when you stop, when you go truly silent, that mirror shatters. She can no longer see herself in your admiration, your interest, your validation. And that absence becomes unbearable, because the ego can't survive without an audience. She'll act unbothered at first. She'll post more. She'll laugh louder. She'll exaggerate her happiness. It's not confidence. It's panic disguised as pride. Because for the first time, she's performing without applause. Epictetus said, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about things." And now her judgment is turning inward. She's not thinking about you. She's thinking about what your absence says about her. That maybe she wasn't as special as she thought. That maybe the power she had over you was never real, only borrowed. Your silence becomes a psychological mirror, reflecting her back to herself without the flattery, without the illusion. And that's what crushes the ego, because it can't stand its own reflection once it's stripped of control. You're not hurting her by ignoring her, you're forcing her to confront herself. You've removed the mirror, and now she's left staring into emptiness. That emptiness is her ego's worst nightmare. When you act like she doesn't exist, you're not disappearing from her life, you're disappearing from her mind. And that's the deepest wound of all. Because once a Stoic man becomes unseen, he becomes unforgettable. Every connection runs on energy. And for as long as she had your attention, she had access to your power. You might not have realized it, but every text, every reaction, every emotional response, it all fed her sense of control. That's how the ego survives. It feeds on significance. You see, your attention is currency, and when you stop spending it on her, the entire economy of her ego collapses. She's not addicted to you. She's addicted to how your energy made her feel. Your validation made her feel desirable. Your effort made her feel wanted. Your emotional investment made her feel important. But when that energy is gone, when you stop giving her even the smallest response, the withdrawal begins. She doesn't know it yet, but she's going through something similar to detox. Every little high she got from your attention is now gone, and the silence hits differently when it's real. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When she loses access to your energy, her thoughts turn inward, darker, heavier, quieter, because for the first time she's not being mirrored, validated, or reassured. And without that energy, the image she has of herself begins to crack. She may test you, she may post for attention, provoke, or even try to pull you back with half-hearted messages. But the Stoic man doesn't bite. He doesn't chase what disturbs his peace. Because when you've truly mastered yourself, you realize attention is power and silence is control. Your energy is sacred now. It's no longer a reaction, it's a choice. You've stopped spending it on things that drain you and started investing it in things that grow you. And that's what destroys her ego. Not your silence alone, but your reallocation. You didn't just go quiet. You redirected your power. And once a man takes his energy back, the entire dynamic changes. She no longer dictates your peace. She becomes a witness to it. There's a moment every woman faces when the game stops working, when the attention she used to command no longer arrives, when the control she used to enjoy suddenly slips through her fingers. That's when the ego begins to collapse. It doesn't happen all at once. It cracks slowly. She posts something hoping you'll see it, but there's no reaction. She tries to appear happy, unbothered, radiant, but it doesn't land the same. She laughs louder, smiles wider, yet underneath there's a silence that wasn't there before, because deep down she knows, she can feel your energy is gone, and that's what breaks her. Her ego thrived on knowing she could still affect you, that no matter how far she pulled away, you'd always be watching, always reacting, always orbiting her world. But when your attention truly dies, so does her illusion of power. Epictetus said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And your reaction, your silence, speaks volumes. Because you didn't just ignore her, you transcended her. You became invisible not through avoidance, but through evolution. She can't provoke what no longer responds. She can't feed off energy that's no longer being given. That realization hits differently. It's not anger she feels, it's insignificance. The very thing her ego fears most. Because in her world, to not be seen is to not exist. And the man who once made her feel powerful has now made her feel invisible. That's the collapse. When she realizes your indifference isn't performance, it's peace. When she sees that your silence isn't a tactic, it's transformation. When she understands that you don't hate her, you just don't think of her at all. That's what shatters the ego, not rejection, but irrelevance. You became her lesson, the proof that a man who masters his emotions becomes unreachable. And once she feels that, she never truly recovers. The most dangerous man is the one who no longer seeks validation, the one who has mastered the urge to prove, to chase, to explain. Because the moment you stop reacting, you start ruling. This is the rise of the Stoic man. The point where pain turns into purpose and silence becomes strength. You've gone through the withdrawal. You've faced the urge to reach out. You've fought the voice that said, "She'll forget you if you don't remind her." And you conquered it. Now you don't crave to be remembered. You've become unforgettable. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." You've turned that into a code. You no longer waste time trying to fix others. You fix your focus. You no longer react to emotions. You regulate them. You no longer speak from weakness. You speak through stillness. That's why your silence carries weight now. It's not the silence of confusion, it's the silence of command. Every time you resist the urge to reach out, you reinforce the structure of your new self. Every time you remain calm when tested, you build a foundation that can't be shaken. And here's what most people will never understand. The real Stoic doesn't go quiet to manipulate. He goes quiet to maintain mastery. He withdraws not from love but from attachment, because he knows that peace isn't found in control, it's found in self-control. That's what makes you powerful. You're no longer chasing people. You're chasing purpose. You're no longer seeking attention. You're cultivating discipline. You've turned your heartbreak into a forge, and what came out of it wasn't a broken man, but a balanced one. Your silence is no longer a reaction, it's a revelation. A revelation that the man who can sit with stillness can rule his world. That's the rise of the Stoic. The moment you realize you didn't lose her, you lost your weakness. Power doesn't change hands through argument, it changes through silence. The moment you stopped reacting, you shifted the entire dynamic. At first, she thought she had control. She believed your attention would always be there, waiting, orbiting, feeding her validation. She thought you'd check her stories, notice her posts, analyze her every move. But when you went completely still, when your energy went dark, everything reversed. She starts to wonder if she ever mattered as much as she believed. She replays the moments where she felt secure in your devotion, and now those memories start to sting, because they no longer belong to her, they belong to who you were, and that version of you no longer exists. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That's the shift she feels. You stopped being predictable. You stopped being emotional. You stopped being a source of attention. Now you're a mystery, and mysteries pull harder than affection ever could. She checks her phone expecting your name to pop up, but it doesn't. She posts something hoping for a reaction, but none comes. She wonders if you've moved on, and that thought starts to eat at her, slowly, quietly, relentlessly. That's how the ego breaks, not in an explosion, but in silence. The same silence that once made her feel powerful now makes her feel invisible, because your attention was never just validation, it was energy. And when you reclaimed it, you didn't just take your peace back, you took her reflection with it. Now she's chasing something she can't name. She's chasing calm, your calm. She's chasing focus, your focus. She's chasing presence, your presence. But you're no longer accessible. You've become the man who doesn't need to be seen to have impact. You've turned silence into gravity, and she's orbiting you now. That's the shift in power. Not because you played games, but because you stopped playing entirely. When a man truly detaches, something awakens in the woman who once took him for granted. The energy that once made her feel powerful now starts to humble her. Because what the feminine craves most, underneath all the pride, performance, and pretense, is the gravity of masculine stillness. And now, that gravity is yours. She begins to soften. The sharpness in her words fades. Her confidence feels forced. The mask of indifference begins to slip. Because no matter how much she tries to project control, her nature responds to strength. And nothing radiates more strength than a man who no longer needs her. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be like the rock against which the waves break. It stands firm and tames the fury of the waters." That's who you've become, the rock, the calm in the storm, the immovable presence she can't shake from her mind. She once mistook that calm for weakness. Now she realizes it was mastery. Your silence has changed her rhythm. She's used to chaos, used to men reacting, chasing, pleading, but your indifference is different. It doesn't fight, it doesn't flee, it just is. And that stillness starts to draw her back in, not through words, but through energy. She begins to remember the way you listened without judgment, the way your eyes never flinched, the way your peace made her feel safe, even when she didn't understand it. That's the paradox. The calmer you become, the more her storm returns to you. Because when the masculine withdraws without bitterness, the feminine eventually returns in humility. But you don't need her to. You've already won, not over her, but over yourself. And that's what makes her crave you even more. She doesn't miss the attention. She misses the stability that attention came from. You became the peace she can't find anywhere else. And now she's drawn to it like gravity. To the man who doesn't reach out, doesn't react, doesn't retreat. The man who simply is. That's the return of the feminine, when your silence restores her softness. At some point, she realizes something she was never supposed to. You're not ignoring her. You've outgrown her. Your silence is no longer personal. It's principled. You're not withholding energy to prove a point. You're guarding it because peace has become your temple. And once a man learns to protect that peace, he becomes unreachable, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. She can sense it. The old version of you, the one who reacted, explained, waited, is gone. The new version doesn't chase, doesn't compete, doesn't perform. You exist in a higher frequency now, calm, composed, centered. The energy she once drained now fuels your evolution. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions." Your ambitions are different now. You're no longer motivated by emotion. You're moved by purpose. The love that once consumed you has turned into discipline. The obsession that once distracted you has turned into focus. The silence that once hurt you has turned into power. That's what makes you unreachable. Not the distance, but the depth. You've become the man who can't be manipulated because he no longer needs anything outside himself. You've become the calm she can't shake, the presence she can't provoke, the mystery she can't decode. And it's in that stillness where her ego finally breaks. Because how do you compete with a man who doesn't care to win? How do you hurt a man who no longer seeks to be understood? How do you control a man who doesn't crave control? You can't. You've become something beyond her reach, a reflection of everything she could have had but never valued. The man who moved in silence and built an empire within. She doesn't know whether to miss you, fear you, or admire you, because the moment you became unreachable, you became unforgettable. That's the highest form of Stoicism, not silence for reaction, but silence as revelation. You no longer withdraw to punish, you withdraw to preserve. And now your absence isn't empty, it's divine. You've become what every man should aim to be, untouchable, unmoved, unreachable. There comes a point when silence stops being an act and becomes an identity. You no longer wake up thinking about what she's doing. You no longer scroll, wonder, or hope. Your peace no longer depends on the outside. It flows from within. This is the Stoic ascension. The moment when emotional detachment turns into divine awareness. You've stopped resisting what happened. You've stopped wishing for what could have been. You simply exist, grounded, disciplined, free. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Man conquers the world by conquering himself." And that's exactly what you've done. You've conquered the storms within you, the urges, the reactions, the ego that once begged to be noticed. You've faced rejection without resentment, silence without suffering, endings without collapse. You've learned that real strength isn't loud. It's still. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you no longer need to prove anything. It's the calm that comes when you stop seeking closure from chaos. It's the peace that comes when you stop giving your energy to things that drain it. And now your presence feels different. Not heavy, but holy. You speak less, yet your words carry weight. You love less, yet your love holds meaning. You need less, yet you attract more. That's the paradox of ascension. The more you detach, the more magnetic you become. Because your silence isn't emptiness anymore, it's mystery. Your restraint isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And your peace isn't passivity, it's power. The world begins to feel your stillness. People lean in when you speak. Even those who hurt you feel it, not through guilt, but through gravity. They sense that your silence no longer comes from pain, but from power. You've become a stoic in motion, untouchable, disciplined, radiant with inner control. You've ascended past validation, past revenge, past the need to be understood. You've entered a higher realm, the quiet kingdom of men who rule not by dominance, but by mastery. That's the Stoic ascension, when your energy becomes eternal and your silence becomes your throne. In the end, this was never about her. It was about you, your discipline, your control, your evolution. Acting like she doesn't exist wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of rebirth. You stopped giving your attention to what was temporary and started building what's eternal. You stopped explaining yourself to those who only heard through ego. You stopped chasing peace and became it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." And now your thoughts are clear. Your emotions are disciplined. Your spirit is unbreakable. You've become a man who doesn't just speak about strength, you embody it. She may think of you sometimes, not out of love, but out of wonder. Wondering how the man who once cared so deeply could now move through life with such calm detachment. Wondering if she ever truly knew you. Wondering how silence could feel so heavy. But that's not your concern anymore, because the man you've become doesn't seek validation. He seeks virtue. You've turned loss into leverage, pain into power, and silence into your sanctuary. This is the essence of dark Stoicism. Not emotionless, but emotion mastered. Not bitter, but balanced. Not empty, but enlightened. You didn't destroy her ego with hatred. You dissolved it with peace. You didn't win because she regrets it. You won because you transcended it. And that is the greatest victory a man can ever achieve. If you live by control, silence, and discipline, like this video, subscribe and comment below. I am unseen. Join the movement. Become a Stoic soldier. Because the world remembers noise, but it bows to silence.